Hey everybody, I'm Dustin Grove. Welcome to our Year in Review special here on WTHR+. Over the last 12 months, 13 News has given you a front row seat to Indiana's biggest stories. We've showed you the people, the moments, and the issues that impact you and your family. But instead of replaying the usual top 10 stories of the year, we thought we'd do something a little different this time. So our team of journalists sat down to share with you the stories that moved us, the moments that challenged us, and the issues we believe changed our community. This is a look behind the headlines at the stories this year that stayed with us. And what better way to start than all the way back on January 1st. All right, Dom, biggest story of the year for you in terms of impact.
Yeah, it would be the first day of 2025. We were down in New Orleans, Louisiana for the Sugar Bowl as a part of the first ever college football playoff. We were covering Notre Dame, who is set to play Georgia on New Year's Day. And it was a New Year's Day I will never forget for the rest of my life. Sadness, remembrance, togetherness. That's been the scene on Bourbon Street all throughout the day on Friday. As you can see behind me, vigils in place remembering those who lost their lives to this senseless tragedy. We spoke to those who are in mourning and New Orleans residents as this resilient city continues to pick up the pieces.
I feel that we were attacked as a city. I feel that we were attacked as a state, and we were attacked as a nation.
2 days have passed following the heinous attack of terror on Bourbon Street. Tears still being shed, respects being paid, honoring those who senselessly lost their lives, something that's important to those on Hand Friday.
So that they mattered, because if there's nothing there, it's like it didn't even happen, and it did, and it's horrible.
The Bourbon Street attack happened, where a white pickup truck in an act of terror went down Bourbon Street and killed far too many people, and our entire day was changed, and we had to report on real consequences and real life impact rather than just a sporting event. It's something I do and I don't think about often. It's weird, but it was without a doubt the most impactful few days of storytelling and day I will never forget.
Yeah, because I mean, like you said, you went down there to cover a sporting event and ended up covering this no one saw coming. Why does it stay with you think?
The raw emotion of that day.
It was horrible. There was bodies everywhere, and it was a nightmare. My heart breaks for everybody. I just can't imagine if we would have walked out 5 minutes sooner and it would have been us, and I put myself in their shoes, and it breaks my heart.
We were on scene 2 hours after it happened. We stayed just a couple blocks away on Canal Street, right at the intersection of Canal Street and Bourbon Street. And a place that was bustling with so many excited fans, Georgia and Notre Dame and college football fans, in a place like New Orleans, which is such a great host city and culture-rich city, was quiet and was, caution taped off and was eerily silent. And, the scene was still fresh. You could see a lot of what had transpired, and that sticks with me. At that point in the morning, we were unsure if it was a sole deal, like if that person acted alone. I mean, it was, as a journalist, you have to shove it down almost, and especially flipping from being so excited and telling a story of New Orleans and what a great host city it was and being part of a parade where beads are being thrown at you, to flipping and being a part of a national tragedy. That shift and the way in which it felt like it was just to the next thing and to the next thing. And I'm forever thankful Josh Blankenship was there with me, because we kept each other on task.
Your photographer.
Yes, extraordinaire. Did an unbelievable job that day. Sage burns, flowers stand still as people mourn. Resilient and together in the wake of tragedy, New Orleans will make it through. never forgetting what happened here.
I feel like I can make it. The storm is over now.
We really helped each other. That's what sticks with me is the reaction of the people there. Talking to residents a couple days later, we helped out our sister station down there in New Orleans. We actually led their newscast talking to our victim's sister and victim's father. Like, that's raw, and the vigil there and the emotion and seeing the community come together, yeah, I won't forget it.
So you were moved by this book. Tell me about it.
This book is written by Tyler Trent in partnership with his parents, Tony and Kelly. And as we know, he was this 20-year-old young man that ended up having a major cancer battle.
It was October 27th, 2018, when his story reached the entire nation. That is when his beloved Boilers upset Ohio State at West Lafayette, and he was there.
I know I often wonder if Purdue had lost that game, what trajectory that Tyler's, story would have taken. I don't know, but we do think about that. Yeah, that was a pivotal point in Tyler's story and his journey, for sure.
Currently vacationing in Florida, the Trents remember that night, especially all the love they were shown, not only from Boiler Nation, but from Ohio State fans as well. The surprising thing is how 1 year later, Tyler's spirit lives on in research and worldwide.
But because of just who he was and his influence, and he always kept stepping into leadership roles, it was just this inspirational story that everyone jumped on. So me having arrived after all of this came, meaning arrived in Indiana, I feel like I'm just catching up to all of it. So it was trying to kind of find the context and understand more of this viewing area and the influence that Purdue has and who Tyler Trent is. But also I found that I wanted to kind of share in their own grief journey that the parents, as well as Tyler Trent, writes about in this book. Having my own grief journey, I wanted to see what someone else's was like.
Yeah, you lost your mother not long ago.
Yeah, a little over a year now, and a journey it has been. And I think when Tyler Trent's father came in, he handed me the book and said, "You got to read this, please read the book." And for whatever, a lot of people ask us to read their books and they bring their books into television studio, but I just felt compelled to read their book because they have not only an inspiring story, but from a Christian perspective, I was attracted to it as well.
What was it really that stayed with you throughout this whole year? When you look at all the stories you've covered in the last 12 months, this is the one that comes to mind. Why is that, you think?
Because what he writes about is not only the tough physical part of the journey, just showing up every day, the mental and emotional struggles it was, but from a spiritual perspective, he calls you to question why we're here on earth and what we are doing with this time. And we worry about so many things in life when ultimately the most important thing is, and this is from a faith perspective, but how are we using our works, our talents and our work to glorify God and his message and make someone else's life better and help them do the same. That's why it stood out to me.
Tyler Trent's still talking to you.
Yeah. We never even met, which was the purpose of the book. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sean, what's the story that really stayed with you this year?
Well, we had 3 big weather events, April 2nd, May 16th, June 18th. I've been working in this market for a while. And, April 2nd, we get tornadoes. That's not uncommon. That particular evening, as I'm working with Angela and Matt, we notice there's a tornado. It's a radar confirmed, now we can see, hey, that's a debris signature. And we're seeing it, it's not out in the middle of open field, we know, because it was in Brownsburg.
Wow, what a night. 9 o'clock last evening, we announced on Channel 13 that there's a severe destructive thunderstorm moving into Hendricks County over Brownsburg. And this is what happened at the Sur La Table Distribution Center, a place that distributes product to Sur La Table kitchen stores throughout the United States. We had a major collapse, the south wall of this building and a portion of the roof.
You know what I mean? So kind of puts a pit in your stomach because you realize, okay, yeah, there's a lot of structures around. You don't know what it's hitting, but you know it's hitting something.
A lot of people around.
A lot of people around. And, you know, I mean, yeah, like I said, sometimes we will get these things that happen. But in the metro, it's been a while for that to happen. And so that bad boy goes from Brownsburg, cuts into the northwest side of Marion County, and then we start to see the video that comes in from Carmel. And, you know, and then you're just like, please, hopefully no one's injured. Thankfully, we had a few injuries from the building over in Brownsburg, but thankfully there was no serious injuries with that particular event. And we fast forward to May, and, you know, a lot of times around here, not all the time, but a lot of our tornadoes sometimes may be on what we call a squall line. That particular storm was, you know, it was a supercell from a radar perspective. It was a textbook supercell, you know, classic hook. And that, again, we start to see it approaching Bloomington.
We begin tonight with a weather impact alert. Strong storms hitting central Indiana tonight, sparking watches and warnings across our state. Southern Indiana taking the brunt of the action tonight. This is drone footage of the Clear Creek area, which is near Bloomington. And tonight, we can confirm at least 5 people were injured. You can see this widespread damage here. Now I want to show you some video taken at the Monroe County Airport. So here we've created a time lapse. That way you can see how this storm moved tonight.
Okay, so you're getting into a pretty highly populated area, and then we start to see a debris signature. And so then you know it's okay, it's doing damage here. You start to pull that thing out. I will tell you the saving grace on that particular cell, and again, there was a lot of damage, long track, but at its peak intensity, it was in the forest of Brown County. Did a lot of damage. I mean, you can see the scar. We'll see that scar for years to come.
Thankfully, though, it was in the forest.
It was in the forest.
The city.
But I mean, some of the pictures from Brown County, you're just like, holy cow. So we were very fortunate in that aspect. And then you get to the June situation. Again, sometimes we get those peak winds that may hit north of the metro or south of the metro. And, you know, I'm thinking, here we go again. The entire metro area, and nearly in what was called a destructive severe thunderstorm warning. Yeah, this is live pics downtown. We're taking the brunt. Now keep in mind too, this was already going to have high wind, but you start funneling it through buildings and the wind will actually pick up. It's like putting your finger over a water hose and it makes it shoot out stronger, of winds well in excess of 80 miles per hour. So again, the whole metro. And so you're just looking at this radar presentation and thinking, goodness gracious. I mean, we get some big storms here, but it was just very active stretch run. We eventually settled down, but boy, I tell you, from early April, and that April 2nd, by the way, goes down as it's a top 10 tornado day for the state. We had over 20 tornadoes.
Well, as people know who've watched you for any amount of time, they know you are passionate about what you do. You are excited about what you do. I feel like this year was a really important reminder of why you do what you do.
Well, listen, I mean, look, a lot of our days are sunny. You know, a lot of our days are quiet. We like to have fun with the weather, but not to sound corny, but at our core, it's to keep people safe and keep them aware. We say stay weather aware for a reason. And it's those handful of days when, you know, like, I hope that, you know, we're saving lives. I hope what we're telling people matters. And, you know, those days, I got a lot of emails and people, our whole team too, man, the whole team, we really believe in our mission here. And I feel like collectively, we did our jobs and we're thankful that, you know, the storms, you know, weren't worse, but boy, those were 3 for this particular year. Those are 3 top events, and they'll go down. You know, I mean, who knows how much longer I'm going to work, but I mean, those 3 particular events, they're up there for the metro area for sure.
Ann, what is the story that stuck with you this year?
What sticks with me this year and has for years now has been the willingness of Hoosiers to share some of their most scary health moments, really with the hope of helping others. And there were 3 stories that I did for Checkup 13 this year that really exemplified that. The first was Fred Bach. He went to CVS. There, he got a test, found out that his blood pressure was very high and thought, this doesn't make sense. Went in and got checked. Turns out he had blockages. He had a widowmaker.
Doctors told him a sudden heart attack was very likely.
I don't know that I'm exaggerating when I said I would probably be dead, because a lot of my activities are by myself. There is no AEDs, there is no CPR.
The threat was discovered when Fred got a heart scan.
I bet I wasn't in there for 15 minutes. It was in and it was out.
And he was able to get a procedure and be here and be active and be with his family. That's an everyman story. He's not a look at me kind of person, but he was like, I went through something really tough. I want to spare other people from going through that, so I'm going to pull the curtain back a little bit and be vulnerable. And that's exactly the same thing with Karen and Luana. Karen and Luana are amazing to me because they both were ladies that dealt with extreme obesity.
While Luana and Karen here both opted for surgery, there are medication options too. There are risks and benefits of both. So it's really important to make sure you educate yourself and see what's best for you.
And that's a very delicate topic. And these 2 ladies had success through bariatric surgery and also being accountability partners for one another. And this was something that worked for them. And they were very open about their weight loss, about their surgery. And they were like, my life has changed. I want this for other people. So I appreciate them for that. And then also the Cheeseborough family. Jillian had a very severe case of scoliosis when she was younger. Then she had 2 daughters that both had scoliosis. And she really was proactive about making sure that they didn't have the experience that she had.
2 careers, 4 kids, and multiple medical diagnoses, starting with mom decades ago.
In 5th grade, school check, they found a curvature in my back. So my mom and dad took me to the doctor and found that I had pretty aggressive scoliosis.
A 30-degree curve requiring a cumbersome brace. She wore 23 hours a day, 5th through 9th grades.
It was hard.
And there's a genetic component.
She wore a brace for such a long time. It was so difficult for her. And she was able to find this procedure that her oldest daughter could get that would be maybe a solution for her to avoid her daughter that pain. But to talk about some of your biggest challenges as a child, and then also for the 2 young girls, who knows what kind of ramifications there are at school to be talking
That's
about
a lot.
that. It is a lot. But all of these people, they are my heroes because they're average people who really realized that they had an opportunity to make a difference for others. And so by sharing their story, I think they kind of felt anointed. And I think they also kind of felt like, maybe this is why I went through it. Maybe this is my purpose. I went through it. This is what I learned. I want you to have a better path.
It's such a selfless act, too.
It
Because
is.
like you said, this is personal stuff. This is sensitive stuff. And in some cases, it's actually saving lives.
Well, it really is. You're talking about a heart scan, finding blockages, things like that. And so we can sit here and beat the drum all the time. You do so with Real Men Wear Gowns. I do so with Checkup 13. But sometimes it's that patient story. It's that person speaking out and saying, this is what I went through. And the viewer looks at it and says, that's me, that's my dad, that's my mom, that's my child. And that story is what inspires them to act, to make a call, to get followed up, to get the care that they need, to make their health a priority, and really live the life that they were meant to live.
Everyday heroes.
Yes.
We've got much more of our 2025 Year in Review special, the stories that stayed with us, next. All right, Scott, what's the one story that really stuck with you?
Christmas for Lori. This was a story that took place in August. I got a phone call from somebody who said there's a woman who has terminal cancer who lives in Carmel. And the idea was her husband knew that Lori's favorite holiday was Christmas, but also knew that she probably wouldn't live long enough to enjoy Christmas. So what he decided to do was to celebrate Christmas in the month of August. On a warm August night, Christmas lights are twinkling on a street in Carmel.
One of our favorite traditions on Windbush is to decorate every house as much as possible.
We may be 125 days away from Christmas, but for the family in this house, the beauty of the holiday needs to happen right now.
When I saw the lights go up last Thursday or Friday, my heart sunk because I knew what it was.
So he had Christmas lights put up at his house. He's got a picture of Lori out on the driveway watching these lights go up. He put all sorts of other Christmas decorations. And as the neighborhood in Carmel learned about Lori's illness that she was battling, they decided that they wanted to jump in as well.
All of us have come together and gotten our decorations up early so that Lori could enjoy, the view of Christmas a little early this year.
I text my neighbor Bill and I was like, hey, Christmas lights. And he goes, already on it.
Decorating their own homes in late summer to honor Lori.
I got tears in my eyes, came in and told my wife, and we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna put up our Christmas stuff too.
The corner house having wrapped up their trees and their colorful bushes, and then we've got the houses down there that will have decorative deer, a Christmas dog.
And so the entire street in the month of August started putting up Christmas decorations, Christmas inflatables, wreaths, Christmas lights.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. And then Christmas for Lori then took on a different significance during the Labor Day weekend, because as the story grew and as Central Indiana began to notice that there was this woman battling ovarian cancer and unlikely to live until Christmas, the entire street decided that they wanted to put on an entire party over Labor Day weekend. On Windbush Way, Christmas lights and decorations are up for Labor Day weekend. Neighbors are creating an early Christmas for the woman who lives in this house. Lori Graves is a 50-year-old wife, a mom, on home hospice with terminal ovarian cancer. Stephen Graves was told his wife only had weeks to live. He knew Lori loved Christmas, the lights, the trees, and all the decorations. Lori always gave her son a happy birthday Jesus cake. So Stephen knew Christmas must come early this year. So the lights went up on his home. Neighbors joined in. Stephen sent me photos of Lori outside, seeing Christmas come together for her in August. Saturday night, they held a Christmas block party for Lori.
And just the heartfelt love that we've received, it's been amazing.
Everybody came.
Santa's here, everybody!
Buddy the Elf
came out for Lori, and just to just support her and the family.
Carolers too.
He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake.
Even live reindeers.
With all of the things that they're dealing with, the one thing they wanted to remind everybody here is that every day can be a holiday.
Just because I'm having something negative going on in my life doesn't necessarily mean that everything that's attached to it has to be negative.
A Christmas for Lori.
And I'm so thankful for that, because she's an amazing person and our neighbors are amazing people.
In Carmel, Scott Swan, 13 News. So while here we are, in December celebrating Christmas, and you go around seeing Christmas lights, imagine what it would be like to be there on a Labor Day weekend when temps are still in the 80s and 90s, to drive down a street in Carmel and to see everyone wearing Christmas outfits. They had Buddy the Elf show up. They had live reindeer show up. The Carmel Fire Department brought in Santa Claus down the street. And so to see the love that this neighborhood had for this woman who was battling ovarian cancer was just a beautiful thing.
What a mix of emotions.
It was a
It
mix.
was everything.
Right. And Lori told me herself when I got a chance to spend a few minutes with her, just because something is bad happening to me doesn't change the way I look at Christmas. And what a beautiful thing to think about. And Stephen Graves, the husband, his heart was all about glorifying God and being able to do something that would give his wife one final Christmas holiday. Because Lori loved Christmas. She would put together a happy birthday Jesus cake and loved Christmas cards and loved putting up the tree. But because she had this terminal cancer, she was unable to do all of that. So Stephen did this all by himself and really rallied the entire neighborhood to take on this enormous project and bring Christmas joy to Carmel in this one street in the middle of summer. It was beautiful.
What a beautiful love story.
It was.
What's the takeaway for you personally, you think?
Well, I think that, you know this because we cover so many sad stories during the year. But this had a different impact on me because you're going into a neighborhood. Many people are traveling over Labor Day. This street showed up in mass. And to see everyone's Christmas decorations up over Labor Day weekend, it was just awesome to see because this is what Hoosiers do. We rally around each other and we support and love one another. And here are a bunch of neighbors who literally, this is the way they wanted to show love and support to Lori. And that was just a wonderful feeling. And I felt touched by it. I felt honored to be able to cover that story.
Sam, what was the one story that stayed with you this year?
This was a story that was about a really unfortunate new record here in Indianapolis. Back in September, the city of Indianapolis set a new record for the number of bicyclists hit and killed on Indianapolis streets, which is devastating and heartbreaking and frustrating on so many levels. And we do this story quite a bit, but this story specifically highlighted an avid cyclist. In fact, you hear in the story, he doesn't even own a car. He drives his bike everywhere. And he was able to share his perspective of what's happening and how we can all be a little bit better.
Tony Chirolis is the executive director of Central Indiana Cycling. He's on two wheels every day.
My bike is a early 2000s Raleigh Technium.
And he knows the risks of the road.
You may be in the right, but if the car doesn't yield, you're still going to get injured.
So far this year, according to new data collected by Safe Streets Indy, 8 bicyclists have been hit and killed on Indy streets. That's a record high. 11 other incidents resulted in serious injury, and of that total, nearly half were hit and runs.
And unfortunately, we still have the entire fourth quarter of the year to go.
Eric Holt founded Safe Streets Indy. He says the city has fallen behind on Vision Zero, a mission to eliminate traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries. Holt says the task force was supposed to lay out a plan by July 1st. That still hasn't happened.
But that plan was supposed to influence the city's budget for 2026.
The city knows where the unsafe streets are. They know where folks are walking, biking, getting to bus stops. We recently had a neighbor this year reach out to us at 52nd Street and say, I can hear people when they get hit from my patio. And I don't want to hear people get hit.
And it's not just this year. I mean, it looks like it's been trending up for several years in terms of pedestrian and bicyclist accidents and deaths, too.
Yeah, and that record was set back in September, and unfortunately, we've seen more accidents since then, too.
What has the city been doing to try and take care of this, to stop this?
We hear a lot about the Vision Zero task force and this plan they've put out to cut accidents, deadly crashes, accidents on our streets with pedestrians and cyclists. But this just feels like one of those stories where we could do it every single day and it still wouldn't be enough to share what we can all do to be better on our streets.
Why do you think that one story in particular really impacted you the way it did?
I think because oftentimes we hear from, the figureheads of the city or the groups who are fighting this cause, but this was just a guy who's part of the community who rides his bike every single day, and he was able to give perspective of what he is seeing on our streets every single day.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah. Rich, what's the one story that really stayed with you in 2025?
The death penalty in Indiana. In the last 12 months now, Indiana has executed 3 men, and Indiana had not executed anyone for 15 years. And the resumption of the death penalty in Indiana has really brought up so many other issues surrounding the death penalty.
For 15 years, death row at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City was just an indefinite holding cell. Then last year, the state said it acquired the drug pentobarbital and would resume executions. Joseph Corcoran died by lethal injection in December, followed by Benjamin Ritchie last month. Governor Mike Braun revealed this week that Indiana apparently bought 3 doses of the lethal drug at $300,000 each. Braun said the drug has a 90-day shelf life and 1 dose has now expired. He says he's not buying more for now.
The whole question of capital punishment, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion on it. There are legislators that wonder if it's still relevant. I'm going to listen to them, the courts, and the broader discussion in general, and that'll be happening across the country.
Not only how it's done, but how much it cost and what we're going to do going forward. If Indiana is going to keep the death penalty, it's like $300,000 per dose, lethal dose for the lethal injection. And now there are proposals before the Indiana legislature to consider the firing squad as a cheaper alternative. So there's so much debate then on both sides of this issue, whether we should even have the death penalty, and if Indiana is going to have the death penalty going forward, how will it be executed?
Why do you think that's the story that stuck with you?
I think because back in 2022, I had begun to look into this issue. We had 8 men on death row. Many of them had been there for 20 years or more. Indiana had the death penalty on the books, and yet no executions were taking place. And then we had 3 different police officers who were killed. And that prompted prosecutors to seek the death penalty. And my question was, why would you seek the death penalty when Indiana is not prepared or willing or able to carry that out? And then all of a sudden, 12 months ago, Indiana began these executions again. And so I think it's an issue that the state and its citizens are going to continue to wrestle with, whether the death penalty continues, and if it continues, how it will be executed, given that we have 3 pending death penalty cases in the courts right now, which we haven't had this many in a long, long time.
To be continued in 2026. Anna, what is the one story that really stayed with you this year?
Well, really, I think it's a few months. We'll call it that. The Pacers playoff and final run. That's the big one.
Yeah, and why?
There's just so many reasons. I think I didn't live through the first finals run. That was 2000. That was 2 years before me.
I remember it well.
Yeah, so it was just cool getting to experience that as a new Pacers fan, just kind of watching that. I remember covering the day they played Milwaukee for game 1 at home. That was the big thing in April of we finally get a home playoff game. Yeah. And then we keep going on. And like every weekend, because I was doing weekend mornings, I was a part of that, like coverage in some way. And it's like, who can say they get to watch that, like literally watch history of this team just throughout that moment? Just look at this. They've got lights ready to go. We are about to have a party in here today. Doors will open at 10:30 for the fan experience.
Is there a way to describe the excitement among the fan base that you got to see in person pretty much every time they advanced?
I mean, you can't describe it because it's like, and I've always said every Indiana team has a proud fan base, and just Pacers fans love their team.
How about the Pacers, baby?
This is what an Eastern Conference championship looks like in Indianapolis. Excitement, joy, one big party. And it's just the start of what's to come now that the Pacers are in the NBA Finals.
They loved Reggie. They loved that era. Even when we were in the down and out a little bit, then it just continued. And I think just this year there was a new hope for this team, and they were like, if these little younger guys can do it, then they felt and they trusted them the full way.
And then we got to the end.
Yeah.
Wasn't the end we had hoped.
No. No, and actually it's funny, I was at the watch party for game 7.
People were in line at 4 o'clock this afternoon to get inside here. I think probably because it is so hot outside, they wanted to get inside in the AC. But let me step out of the way so you can see this. This will not open until 7 o'clock. These fans are ready. I can tell you, I'm looking at the security lines. Line is outside of the door. These fans are ready to go. They've been out here for hours.
And you go into that and you have to think in your head, what am I going to cover that day? Am I going to be covering a win? Am I going to be out till 3 a.m. watching the city like celebrate? Or is it going to be the opposite? And when that injury happened, the craziest feeling of just Gamebridge, there were thousands of people in there and it was silent.
You could feel the agony.
Yeah,
right?
and it was, I think all of us that were sitting in the reporter area, we all were like, oh my gosh. And then it was like a little bit of like, oh, okay, they can potentially do it. And then it's like, you just felt it go down, but still just the fans were like, it's okay. It sucks, but they were just happy the way it ended, I think, as well.
So why do you think this particular story, of all the stories that you covered, really impacted you the most?
There's, I think, so many ways. I think as a young reporter, being a part of something like that, it just makes it feel all surreal. And like I said earlier, just never having to experience that before. I felt that new energy with it, and it kind of made me actually take myself out of the role of being a reporter, and it made me feel like a little fan at times. That was kind of the cool thing about that. I was able to take myself out of that for a little bit and just be like, oh, this is real life and experience.
You seem like a big fan to me.
It's funny because I grew up a Pacers fan. That's the thing, the Indiana Pacers. That was the big thing for me. And watching my brother, and I kind of envisioned my brother too. He was a little Pacers fan. Like, he had all the jerseys of the big guys. He had the Paul George jersey all the time. So like, kind of watching it now, I'm like, that's just kind of cool. Like, knowing what they were when I was little to now, I was like, craziest little thing ever.
Angela, of all the stories that we covered in 2025, what's the one that really sticks with you?
Unfortunately, the flooding at Camp Mystic in Texas. I'm a mom of two. I think both of our kids went to Camp Tecumseh. You send them on their way. In no way do you think what happened at Camp Mystic was going to happen.
On July 4th, historic flooding devastated the Texas Hill Country. The Guadalupe River in Kerr County surging nearly 30 feet in less than an hour. The resulting death toll, catastrophic. 138 lives lost. And at Camp Mystic alone, 25 young campers and 2 counselors.
Yesterday, the parents remembering those bright young lives.
8 years, 4 months, and 22 days wasn't long enough.
And what's upsetting as a parent and a meteorologist is it had happened before. And so why were those young girls put in danger? When I feel there should have been changes after the first time.
How big of an event was the flood itself? I mean, it was historic, right?
Historic. And the pictures, the destruction that water does, trees leveled, homes leveled, buildings moved. And you hear the stories of those young girl campers holding onto mattresses, floating down the river. You can't imagine, in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. It shows the power of water. It shows how necessary weather radios are, and having ways to get warnings, being able to get that communication that was issued from the Weather Service, that was issued from emergency folks in the county and the surrounding areas, being able to get that information is crucial to survival. It shouldn't have happened. It really shouldn't have happened. I think having something that catastrophic happen one time, that camp should have been moved. And I appreciated some of the local stories we did about Camp Tecumseh and how close they are to the Wabash, I believe, and how they have put camps in a safe place outside of that floodplain. I mean, Camp Mystic was in a floodplain. We have farm fields in floodplains here. You don't put a camp for girls or a camp for anybody in a floodplain.
It sparked a lot of conversations around the country.
Yes, and you just feel for those parents that, you send your kids to camp and they don't come home.
The story that really stayed with me this year is the historic rise of IU football under coach Curt Cignetti, which is especially impactful because I'm a Purdue guy. I come from a family of Boilermakers, but even the staunchest Boilermaker fan cannot ignore or discount what IU football has done in the last couple of seasons. The way that they were able to turn that program around is just incredible. And then to cap it all off, of course, quarterback Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman. It is truly just the stuff of storybooks and movies. And I'm just now trying to figure out who is going to play Curt Cignetti in the movie.